Bureau in Dakar. In a nutshell, that is the agenda of the day. We will end the day at 2 p.m. Without further ado, may I call on Mr. Toure Jawara and the Malian team. Sorry, Madam, Mrs. Toure Jawara, not Mr. I'm sorry. Mali was supposed to prepare the summary for yesterday's day. You have the floor for about 10 minutes. You can come up to the front of the room to make a summary of yesterday's session. So we will, after you finish, Alex will take the floor.
Dans 10 minutes devrait suffire, je pense, pour votre intervention. Vous avez le micro.
Non, c'est bon.
Okay. Good morning, my dear colleagues. As we agreed yesterday, Mr. Musa Belem and I, Jara Draman from Mali, we have the pleasure to make a recap of yesterday's session. We will be very brief as it has been asked of us. Yesterday's proceedings began with the presentation of the day's proceedings done by of day one's proceedings rather, that was done by Liberia. After that presentation, Mrs. Lee Young-jung introduced the moderator, the facilitator of the second day, Dr. Alex from the University of Malta, and she ensured the moderation of the activities during that session. Dr. Alex made a presentation on competencies on technical tools. He introduced himself and then talked about the goal of the workshop, that is to create a conducive environment to accelerate digital transformation in TVET systems. He explained that the ecosystem is an interaction between the various organizations, that is a platform that integrates legal, regulatory, and socio-political elements. He gave us an example of ecosystems, and he talked about the platformization tree. That is, he talked about the roots, the trunk, and the leaves of the tree. With regard to the digitalization of TVET systems, he talked about quality assurance and the recognition of qualifications, among other things. He also talked about the decentralization of digital platforms in TVET systems, and talked about cases in Europe, and he also talked about Industry 4.0. With regard to Europe, which is characterized, the environment is characterized by innovation, acceleration, adaptation, and the regulation of the policy environment. With regard to Industry 4.0, the trend is to transform the way we do things by associating the physical and the virtual world, involving decentralized systems as well. He also pointed out that the link between TVET systems and digital policies is necessary. He highlighted certain key points with regard to TVET systems, the digital transformation of TVET systems, such as access to computers, collaboration among stakeholders, integration of technologies in our daily behaviors. Dr. Grech's presentation ended with a SWOT analysis practical exercise, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. And for this, we use the Flinger application app, and members, countries represented here identified their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that brought us to the end of the first session of the day. For the second session, the theme was on competencies to build and manage a national network that is operational and sustainable. That session was facilitated by Mr. Jean Jonas. Professor Jane Way Skillen made a presentation. She's from the High School of Business at UC Berkeley, as well as Marty Koster from the consortium of development consortium of the Seattle King County, and Madam Annelise, who is a lecturer. They relied on concrete examples, case studies, and talked about the four principles to have the four network principles, that is mission, trust, humility, and the construction of a solid team. For example, we talked about networking in the housing sector in Seattle. We talked about the guide dog company, which helps visually impaired people. We also did group work on issues such as why it is important to build a network, and also we talked about national experiences with regard to collaboration. Experiences were also shared during the plenary session. Certain countries shared their experiences. So in a nutshell, that is what happened yesterday, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Merci.
Thank you. We thank you. We thank the Malian participants for this recap, which was quite comprehensive. I will now call on our colleague Wanjo for the next activity, which is to discuss the session on competencies for technical support.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, perfect. And I think Alex is connected now. Let me check. Alex?
I am here.
Okay, perfect. So we're gonna do, as Alex mentioned yesterday, so we're gonna ask each country to nominate one person to talk about what they discussed yesterday. And just as a reminder, we did a SWOT analysis yesterday. If you remember, SWOT stands for strengths, weakness, opportunities, and challenges. And I know we had a really good discussions for an hour yesterday. So I think it's a good time for you to share what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges you have in your countries. So before we start, may I ask you to access Flinga? Is everyone ready? Is everyone ready? Ready? Good. Okay, perfect. So Alex, would you like to start with the reporting back, and then we'll go into analysis, right?
I suggest that I listen to what people got out of the exercise.
Okay, perfect.
Anything they want to highlight, and then I think I can
All right,
close
great.
with some observations.
All right. So then, may I ask any volunteer? I know Ghana team is ready. Okay, great. Mr. Dorr, would you like to step forward and talk about your analysis? Okay, Alex, just give us a few seconds. I think Ghana team is they're trying to open the platform. Oh, actually, Gambia is ready, so we can start with Gambia. By the way, each country has about 3 to 5 minutes to talk about, so if you have any concerns or questions, I think you can also raise those concerns.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. This is Team Gambia. No, I think I'm using. So on the country strength, when we looked at the on the country strength, when we looked at the Tibet governance, as far as the strengths are concerned, the Gambia developed a national Tibet policy, and that was something that we consider as a strength as far as the Tibet governance is concerned. Then on digital infrastructure, we also have a countrywide fiber network that has gone around the country. So that also could be seen as a strength as far as the digitalization of Tibet is concerned. On the political will, we also have a ministry that is responsible for ICT, and they work collaboratively with the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, where Tibet also is housed with a focal person and a unit, and that also is seen as a strength. Then on skills development, there are Tibet institutions established in various sectors, and that also is something that we can see as a strength. And also with regards to regulations, there is the National Accreditation and Quality Assurance Authority that has developed a scheme that recognizes prior learning, including apprenticeships and other things, and there is certification. Even you can just go for assessment to be assessed to see which level of the National Vocational Skills qualification you belong to. So that also is something that we see as a strength. Then on the, let me just move. On the weaknesses, we felt that on the leadership aspect, Tibet should not only be a unit at the ministry, instead it should be a directorate. So it should be expanded to a directorate that was responsible for technical and vocational education, rather than a unit under the Directorate of Tertiary and Higher Education. So that we see as a weakness. On low labor market interest, we talked about this thing, industry school skills mismatch. There is a mismatch between what is taught in the Tibet institutions and what the labor market demands. So that also is a weakness as far as this thing. On gender inequality, we've realized that most of the technical hardcore skills are mainly dominated by males, and even the enrollment in the Tibet institutions is male dominated. So low female participation is something that also is a weakness. On Tibet trade status, so normally Tibet education, technical vocational education is seen as something for school dropouts. So parents would rather see their best students go and study law, engineering, medicine, rather than go and do carpentry, masonry, and other TVET-related this thing. So those are things that we recognize under the weaknesses. Then under opportunities, so we have a lot of local partnership that is available, because even the TVET institutions, the private TVET institutions, they have an association and they interact. So there is a lot of opportunity as far as TVET is concerned. And we also have the national qualification framework, which is also an opportunity for somebody to explore. Yeah. And the fact that the National Quality Assurance Authority recognizes the certificates that are obtained from TVET institutions or even from the apprenticeship training component is something that's an opportunity to explore. And there is a national research policy that is developed so as to help in bringing to narrowing the gap between the curriculum and what traits are needed in the local market. So there is that research that can also bring that narrowing down of the mismatch between the institutions and the labor market. So on the threats, one, what we see as a possible threat is the country is so small and all the other countries that are around us are far bigger. So there is that threat of bigger brother taking over the economy of smaller brother. Then another threat that this thing is, especially on the drainage, brain drainage, we have a lot of our youths that have migrated either through the regular means or the irregular means, and that also is something that is a threat as far as this thing. And this year we are going into an election, and it is very tense as far as we are a very small country with 25 people trying to vie for the presidency. So that also could be seen as a potential threat as far as we are concerned. Then the quality of training also, as far as some of the institutions that are service providers are concerned, is also seen as a threat. So that is what we did as a Gambian team, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Jallo. Alex, do you have any comments at the moment?
I'm almost over the real issues, including stuff that we can't really control, like elections coming up. For example, the same thing is happening in my country right now, and that can be a very disruptive force. So if you see me with my head down, I'm typing what I can hear. So I'd rather we keep on going, I think, Hanja. Thank you. That was a really useful session, definitely for me.
Cool. Is Ghana ready? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I think that our next team is Ghana.
Ghana will start with the strengths. We have a very good TVET governance system in the country, where the roles of the various agencies are clearly defined. The ministries, the directorate of the TVET, or the ministry, the Commission for Technical Vocational Education and Training are clearly defined, and with proper organizational structures. Then the political will, one of the key aims of the government is to develop the TVET system in the country. So the quality curriculum, yes, we are improving. We are trying to make all curriculum of the TVET institutions, which are all coming under a new system that we are calling TVET service. We want to make it a competency-based curriculum so that the focus is on competencies. So that is being done. A lot of courses have the competency-based curriculum, either Proficiency 1, Proficiency 2, Certificate 1, Certificate 2, Higher National Diploma, Bachelor of Technology, Master of Technology, and Doctor of Technology. We are trying to do that. We have supportive trade areas where we have sector skills bodies. They are being formed to be able to be part of the curriculum development so that we will not have this skills mismatch. This issue of people identify from the various skill sectors who are coming are part of the curriculum development to make it CBT. We also have a good pedagogical dimension in the sense that because of that, that's why we are having the CBT orientation. And also in the Commission of Technical Vocational Education, there is a clear-cut division, subdivision, which is responsible for curriculum development and that matter pedagogical issues. So these are the strengths. Coming back to the weaknesses, yes, we have these industry schools mismatch. That's why we are trying to correct that using the strength. We also have inadequate financing. Naturally, in a developing country, the budget given to education and some other TVET sector is not enough. But then we're trying to, things of this nature will address it anyway. The employability of TVET graduates, we have a challenge. Especially when people, graduates from the TVET institutions are not well placed. When it comes to HND and degree, the academic oriented degree, still they give attention to the academic oriented degree people and place them higher in industry than the people who really have the skills. So that's a challenge, but we're trying to address that. So also we have marginalized groups being when it comes to gender, females are marginalized. Again, people with disabilities or physically challenged are equally marginalized. So these are some of the weaknesses. There are opportunities. The opportunities are external to Ghana. Those factors that negatively impinge on the performance or development of the TVET sector. But then one is that of local partnership. We're trying to have a partnership with multilateral agencies, bilateral agencies, GIZ bilateral, DFID bilateral, JICA bilateral, World Bank and other agencies multilateral. So that is connected to the international partnership. The local partnership also with ministries, other ministries that, we training. The Ministry of Education and the TVET sector is training for employability purposes. So we have partnership with Ministry of Employment, We have partnership with Ministry of Trade because some of our products go into trade and do things that are used internally and exported externally. So we have that partnership too. Now we also have a recognition of TVET and digital skills. We been an opportunity since now in this era, a lot of things are done using digitals. So we have that recognition, and a lot of people are now trying to have ICT skills, have skills in the greening TVET and other things that are being sought after internally and externally. So people will have that. Then we also have globalization of skills. We're trying to give the type of skills that our products could be employed internally and externally in the West African sub-region, because there are a lot of opportunities for people to go out and do things, not only in Ghana, but in other countries, in the sub-region and also outside the continent. We have threats. The brain drain is a threat. Most of well-trained people are moving out, especially going overseas. And we also have changes in labor market. These changes in the labor market is expecting people to have multi-skills at this moment, and also get trained in other areas in a diversified manner so that they'll be able to fit, because things are changing. Then we have uncoordinated implementation. In fact, that is one of the key problems we face. And Ministry of Trade is doing training. We have institutions. We have Ministry of Employment doing some skill training. We have Ministry of Education doing skills training, and several other agencies doing skills training. Why that is not their core mandate? The core mandate of education and training is that of the Ministry of Education. But others are doing it. That is the very reason why we are trying to merge all under what we are calling TVET service. So that any skills training, any education should fall under Ministry of Education. So about 29 different agencies, organizations doing skills training, are now all brought automatically, directly under the Ministry of Education, so that we would focus on the skills training. So because of the uncoordinated nature, that is what we are trying to do that. Now we have red tapeism, where there is so much bureaucracy. Something that will take a short time to be done, take several weeks, months, years to be done. So that is a big training. But then with the restructuring, we think it could be toned down a bit. Then we have a weak monitoring system. Since a lot of agencies are not well funded, there's not much money for monitoring to ensure that the training goes on well the way it is. And so the system are there, the curriculum are there, whether it's being taught very well, so that whether the instructional delivery is on course, whether the assessment is being done well, we don't have that. So these are some of the threats, but we'll figure out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dora. I think that was the Ghana team provided really rich information, and I think it's a really good start for us to think about, how we can, reach what we want to get. So, Alex, unless you have additional comments, I think we can move on to the next group. All right, great. May I invite Liberia?
Good morning. So, for Liberia, we have as strength the political will. As of now, our political leaders are fully engaged and are also the ones driving the revamping of the TVET sector in Liberia. We also have a national TVET policy It has been existing, but we have just revised it with help from UNESCO. We just revised that, and it covers almost every sector of the TVET landscape. There is a strong coordination between the two ministries that are responsible for the implementation of TVET in Liberia, because by whom we have the ministries of education and youth and sports. Those two ministries are responsible for the implementation of TVET. But besides going beyond that, we also have strong coordination between the local and international partners when it comes to the TVET sector. We also have as strength the availability of pilot projects. At present, we have several projects going on. The Youth Rising, which is supported by the EU. There's also the Strive, which is supported by the IECD, and there are several others on board. Teachers trainers capacity. Under the EU Youth Rising project, there are going to be 100 plus teachers who are going to be equipped. They are going to be trained, and the capacities are going to be improved. They will be traveling to several African countries to get a lot more in terms of pedagogy. We also have as strength the digital infrastructure. At present, at least 80% of the fiber cable has been rolled out in Liberia, which will in turn improve the quality of the internet. For weaknesses, there's always the issue of industry and schools skills mismatch. I think that cuts across most African countries and probably some European countries. There's also low labor market interest, and this has been because of the low coordination between the labor market and the TVET sector, which is being corrected presently. We have the issue of gender inequality. For some reason, we have not had a lot of female participation in TVET, or even when they have participated, it's always been the usually gender trades, tailoring, but that we are trying to change, and we're trying to encourage a lot of female into non-traditional female trades. There's also the issue of the physically challenged. We have had that problem for some time, although we are trying to mitigate it, but it still exists. And then there's the negative perception of TVET. Most people tend to take TVET as a fallback position. Usually when parents are fed up with their kids not doing well in the academic side, and they just say, okay, you just go and do TVET. That we have to also change. There is a perennial issue of inadequate financing, which cuts across almost all African countries too. Yeah, it is a difficult thing, but we're hoping that we can overcome that. And then the employability of TVET graduates. It's a little difficult because most times we have these graduates, and then to get employed is also difficult. We're trying to fix that, and probably I will talk about that under the opportunities. So for opportunities, we have local partners. And so for that, I will speak about the issue of employment. We could also mitigate that by having a strong relationship or having this cooperation between the private sector and the public sector. So by that, we could invite a lot of industries to take part in our training, and they could in return feel comfortable employing our graduates. We have a strong pool of international partners. We have the EU, we have the IECD, we have GRZ, we also have the Swedish government. They have, and the French here, they have put a lot of time into and resources into revamping the TVET sector. At present, we have, in principle, the EU has agreed to extend the Youth Rising project to an additional 8 counties in Liberia. In Entrepreneurship education. We have noticed that not every graduate will be employed. So to mitigate that, entrepreneurship training is going to be an integral part of all of our TVET training going forward. Improve TVET standards. Under the Youth Rising, Youth Rising project, we are going to mitigate these. TVET standards are going to be improved. There's going to be one set of certification, one set of accreditation, one set of quality assurance, and included in all of this is going to be the issue of lifelong learning. For threats, we have competition from countries, as always, and there's the issue of brain drain. And this is an issue that almost all African countries experience, not only in the TVET sector, also in other sectors. So that's a threat to us. The change in political buy-in, like one of the earlier speakers said, we are going towards election, and then depending on who wins, the person might not want to buy into what's presently happening. That is a threat. Also, changes in labor market. You might have people trained for certain trades at a particular time, but then jobs, due to changes in the labor market, jobs in those trade areas might not be forthcoming. That could also serve as threat. And also adverse feedback and communication. That also could be a threat. So for Liberia, those are what we've chosen, and thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Zizi. Just like the other first groups, I think Liberia has shared quite interesting points covering strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And after we have this country reporting back, perhaps we'll have a couple of minutes to reflect what we've shared. So thank you again, Mr. Zizi. And may I ask Guinea Conakry just to share what has been discussed.
En Guinée, en termes de force,
in Guinea, in terms of strengths, we have more demand for training. I believe that this is a strength because before, vocational training was considered as failure, but today the job market recruits more people who are trained in the TVET sector. For those graduates, technicians are more recruited by the job market, so there's more demand for such graduates. And we usually have TOT, so there is constant capacity building, which is quite interesting. The government is also interested in vocational training because we have a dedicated ministry. We also have a lot of opportunities for vocational training in Guinea, and I believe that this is a strength. Now let's talk about opportunities. As opportunities, we have the economic aspect. Teachers are conscious of the potential of vocational training. We have the employers associations that are also here to support us, and all these are part of opportunities for strength. Or rather, weaknesses. For the weaknesses, we have demand for training because we do not have the necessary facilities and logistics to supply for the demand in training. We also have the cost of training. We have a high poverty rate, as you know, and it's difficult for many to access high quality training. This is about weaknesses. Now let's talk about threats. For the quality of training, we believe that it's not up to the standards of the firms. So we need more technical capacity building. We are not able to reach out to our initial target. We also have deterioration of the resources. We are all very much interested in technology and digital transformation, but we do not have good connectivity in order to cater for all the needs related to the transformation.
Thank you for your concise wrap up. So Alex, I'm gonna move on to the next country. May I invite? Oh. And may I just invite Burkina Faso?
D'accord, merci bien.
Thank you. For Burkina Faso, in terms of strength, we have political will. Authorities want to develop the TVET sector. We also have a sectorial framework, a consultation framework between the various actors in the TVET sector. We also have a versatile training curriculum and financial mechanisms in place. We have a sort of fund that supports TVET and vocational training, and this has been established a few years ago for political support and private support. We have a sort of multi-sectorial approach to it. All these entities are working together. We also have institutional actors that adhere to the cause and they are committed to developing digital economy. So there is a link between TVET and digital transformation because we have to build on the digital infrastructure of the country. There is also the presence of what we can call a backbone. In Burkina Faso, we have around 2,000 kilometers of optic fiber spread around the whole territory, and this will support us a lot as far as the digitalization is concerned. Now, regarding weaknesses, we have inconsistency in the planning regarding to TVET systems, a lack of efficiency and capacity of the actors. There's also the sinews of war, money, lack of funds, there's lack of funding in the sector. And the absorption capacity of the job market is very low because there is inadequacy in the supply and demand as far as the training side is concerned. Lack of quality as well in the training curriculum. So we do not have the standards. We are not up to the standards when it comes to quality assurance in the training. Access to vocational training is also a problem and it's related to the cost. It's still quite expensive in our countries to get trained, and many people do not have access to it. For ICT, information technology, there is a problem in the buy-in or adherence of communities or populations. We have a low literacy rate, so they need to be literate first and foremost before they're introduced to ICT. We also have this issue of skills in ICT that is not capitalized. Brain drain was mentioned. All those who are trained in country are not used by the job market, and as a result they flee to other countries. We also have the digital aspect, which is important. The context it needs to be adapted. Regarding the weaknesses that was covered, now for the threats, we have the centralization of resources and risks, security risks, because since 2016 we have been living this insecurity situation in Burkina Faso because of terrorism. There is also demographic growth in our country and reluctance to change, because whenever you mention digitalization, there is a sort of reluctance or fear of change. Lack of trained and equipped human resources. This was also a problem. Of course, competencies and skills, digital competencies and skills suffer from brain drain as well. So these were the threats. Now for opportunities. We have a growing GDP that is between 4 and 6%, and we have the renewed willingness of sponsors and development partners to support us in the sector, the TVET sector. And as opportunities, we have a potential in Burkina Faso because the population is relatively young. It's a great opportunity for us. There's also commitment, institutional commitment, that started in 2019, and it's 3 billion of our national currency being invested. We also have the devising of digital policies at institutional level. So ICT is supporting digital transformation in the TVET sector. In terms of bandwidth, in Burkina Faso, we have submarine cables to increase the bandwidth already available in Burkina Faso. To finish with, in terms of technological innovation, there are initiatives that are ongoing, and we're also seeing a decrease in the prices of digital equipment. So more affordability of equipment, and this enables vocational institutes to acquire more facilities and equipment. This was for Burkina Faso. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to invite Mali and then move to Senegal.
Ali.
Can we proceed? Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Since Senegal is a country of Teranga, they will let us go first and then they will come after. Thank you. So for Mali, we have worked on the SWOT analysis, and as strength in Mali, we have the existence of a national opportunity, or rather a policy for vocational training. We have a policy devised for vocational training. We also have the engagement of authorities to support vocational training. And as evidence, in July 2021, we had the national consultations on vocational training, and it was unprecedented. And among the recommendations of such event, the first one was to have digitalization of vocational training. So this shows the commitment of authorities to support vocational training. We also have the creation of centers, modern centers, with partners that are supporting us in building infrastructure for ICT. And we believe that that is part of the strength. For weaknesses, we have the cost of connectivity, of course, that is quite high. We have lack of training of actors in the sector in ICT, and insufficient access to internet connection for some users, because in some areas internet is not stable. We also have the division in charge of vocational training and TVET. These two divisions do not work in synergy. You have a division for entrepreneurship and vocational training, and the Ministry of Education is in charge of TVET. So we work in silos in this sector. For opportunities, we have partners that are supporting us, and we also have electricity coverage in the big cities. All big cities have good access to electricity. We also have trainers who are available, and high demand of the youth for vocational training and learning. So these are for the opportunities. Now, for threats, we have an unstable network, or rather situation environment. Our Burkina brothers mentioned it. It's related to security issues in the Sahel region, and this has an impact on the stability in the country. We also have reluctance to change. Many actors are reluctant to buy into the change. And still on threats, we lack sufficient infrastructure, ICT infrastructure. Thank you very much. This was our SWOT analysis.
Senegal, please.
Merci.
Thank you very much for giving us the floor. I'm going to present the SWOT analysis for Senegal as far as digital transformation of our country is concerned. First of all, when it comes to strength, today we have mechanisms for distance learning. We have what we call the Virtual University of Senegal. For TVET, we also have a learning platform, a learning a distance learning platform that is called Jang, which is learning in Wolof, the local language, and this enables the training institutes to put in place hybrid learning schemes to have both in-person and online learning mechanisms, because you know that many of the skills needed in this field of vocational training can not be done in another scheme than in-person training. And for the soft skills, those can be done online. Today we have some curricula based on the skills and competencies, and we want more adequacy between what we offer as far as training is concerned and the needs of the job market. We have also noted that there is a sort of framework document or a guideline that was developed in the country somehow a reference document to establish a strategy for digital transformation, and this is actually the reference for digital transformation in our country. Still on strength, we have mobile development. The mobile market is very well developed in Senegal, with a turnover of more than 5 billion francs CFA, and we have an agency called ADIE, which is the digital agency in Senegal under the umbrella of the government, and this will help us a lot in the digitalization of the sector. For weaknesses, we have weaknesses related to external efficiency. Let me explain. When we are training graduates, we do not know how much they are absorbed in the job market. We do not have a tracking system to assess how employers are using these graduates. And with the support of IFEF, we are currently developing an application that will enable us to track how far our graduates have gone. The issue of youth employment has been alluded to by many countries, and this is also the case for Senegal. Now, for distance learning implementation in our country, we are yet to create a regulatory framework that would be dedicated to distance learning, and some efforts could be made in this regard.
Now, with regard to vulnerable groups, not necessarily vulnerable, but I would maybe talk about the informal sector. At this level, in terms of digital aspects, there are some shortages, despite the fact that with UNESCO, we are currently testing what we call the integrated pedagogical model, where we will try to integrate 3 dimensions, national languages, as well as trade, among others. This test is being conducted, but we haven't reached the end yet, so that in order to scale it up. There is a weakness with regard to access to internet. Even though we have a good coverage at the national level in terms of the system, internet, populations do not always have access to it. With regard to another point that we think is a weakness, is the harnessing of ICT potential. within the framework of our training programs, we do not sufficiently develop training on virtual reality, the use of simulators, or enhanced reality as well. And these are technologies that could benefit, their use could benefit in training institutions, because simulators could help us to improve access to training, as well as reducing the cost of some of these training programs. There is also the issue with I think maybe I should stop here with regard to weaknesses. And we have started developing what we call digital innovation laboratories for pedagogy, where we produce digital resources for TVET training. UNESCO has helped us in this regard to set up 3 such laboratories, including the Limamulai Laboratory, Urusogi, and Ziguinchor labs, for those who do not know about these labs. With regard to opportunities, we have, I think that the digital aspect is promoted at the highest level in the head of state, who today has called on the government to move 30% of the basic cycle towards the digital sector. And this is a huge political will of our authorities to ensure that 30% of young people in the basic education cycle should be moved to TVET programs. The fact that we're also promoting this, there is a leadership for this promotion, as well as to share digitalization. The other aspect, as you also said, is about our demographic dividend. Our young population is not a problem, but rather an asset, and we should give them the opportunities for them to grow. There is also partnerships. I talked about a lot of activities that we are conducting through our partnerships or on account of our partnerships with development institutions, and this is important. It is a global system. It is an open system. We are open to all partnerships. There is also the fact that we are developing competencies, core competencies, as well as competencies relating to entrepreneurship. In terms of threats, one of the main threats, and the professor yesterday insisted on that issue, that is institutional change. Every time there is institutional change, there can be a redefinition of priorities, and it therefore becomes a threat in terms of developing and financing digital transformation of TVET systems. Another issue is that we have to put off frameworks we have to start developing digital trades, digital training programs, so that we can use digitals and ICTs in all curriculum. Those are just a few aspects I wanted to share with you, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Ndoye. So, Alex, I think we covered all 7 countries, and I think we're pretty okay with the time, but if you have a final few words, could you please?
Okay. So how much time do we have?
How about less than 5 minutes? Is that okay?
Okay. My question is this. Okay. There's an echo take out the code for me. I think the first thing is that I'm almost overwhelmed by trust that you have in your ability to speak honestly about your country. One of the things that mentioned to me yesterday. Can you fix the audio? As I my. Thank you. One of the things that Hanjan mentioned to me yesterday was that as you were doing the Flinga exercise, she said, people are not using the anonymous section. And that was something which really pleased me no end, because it implies trust. Also in trust in what we are trying to do here, that it's an environment that is trying to figure out what do we do from this point onwards. We're at the situation analysis stage right now, and we want to move on. Two, I'm not going to share with you the slides that I had prepared for now, specifically because it's 5 minutes, but I will make sure that Josiah and Hanjan send these to you, because I think they may be self-explanatory. And it may well be that we will have to get into other conversations from this point onwards. I think the most important thing is ownership here. If this were an exercise where an external consultant like me, albeit closer to you than you may think because of the proximity of my island to Africa, ownership and buy-in are really important. And for me, what encourages me is that the list of topics that I was listing for your specific segments seem to have been embraced by you as being relevant to your countries. What we are going to do now, or what I definitely am going to do now, is literally look at the Flinga board, and I've already started some analysis on that. Definitely look at the notes I've been taking as I was listening to you. And that's the first round of a situation analysis. My suggestion would be that if there's anything that you haven't thought about by the time you get back to your countries, we can keep the Flinga board open. And you can also add to that. I think the second option is that, again, my door is open, like Hanjan's and Jose's. Please email me. I mean, I will in the email, I'll actually send you material where you can reach out to me, because my next task now is to look at the material you've submitted and start to work on these, guidelines for competencies, which can be used in all countries. But I'm first going to start from the specifics. So I'm going to start from the SWOTs, what the individual countries have said. Honestly, I will read every single thing that you've produced, because I found value in a lot of the stuff. And I think what I found interesting was that it was not anecdotal. It was pretty much based on experience. So for me, this exercise has been extremely useful, and I hope it's also useful for you. So the next steps will be, we will have to do some homework here on this side. You may well hear from someone at UNESCO asking for some more information, but from this point onwards, bearing in mind that there is going to be a similar exercise now speaking to the labor market. That's always going to be interesting. We're talking about gaps here, between people who are policymakers like yourselves and what the labor market wants, needs, demands. And it will be interesting to see if we're all on the same page, if we've all identified the same gaps. They will go through a similar process. Let's see what comes out of it. I wouldn't be surprised if there is much commonality. But what encourages me is, and you can hear this in many countries, I don't think it was simply, to please me or please UNESCO people there. There is commitment and pockets. I will leave you with this, though. There were some comments about, we're a small country. And I have a great belief that small countries can be used as innovation labs. So in the same way that small countries can always seem to be, it's like a tsunami coming from other big countries. Small countries can sometimes do things quicker, faster than the bigger countries. So that's one of my first messages to people who live in small countries like the one I currently live in. The second thing is to focus on already, and you will see this in the slides I will send you, on what can you do to get something done. And getting something done is getting something up, quickly running, that your political masters, but anybody else that you need to get by as champions of change can relate to. And I think that's really important. So I'll keep on telling you that even from now on, whilst we're still at the situation analysis, taking stock, where are we, so that we can move forward, you already start thinking of what can be those possible quick wins, let alone you think of those 10 key targets, a mix of tangible things and a mix of KPIs, key performance indicators that you have to go to. We're on a journey. I hope I can spend some of this journey together with you. I'm fascinated by this exercise, and thank you. For me, it's been a real privilege spending time with you over the last 2 days. Okay, so thank you for your attention.
Alex. And I really liked what Alex just suggested, and I just want to remind everyone that this training is not just a one-off event. We started this initiative with a 10-year vision, so we're not going to stop here. And as Alex just mentioned, we can keep the Flinga, the platform, open, and once you go back to your country, if you have more inputs, ideas, you can continue to add up. Because Alex, we'll be working with Alex to develop the guidelines on how to conduct a country diagnostics. So that way we can maintain our communications, and we'll try to support you throughout the journey to come up with a contextualized solutions for you for digital transformation of TVET and skills development systems. So with that, I'd like to conclude the session. So now the coffee break is ready. So we'll be back by 10:30. And thank you, Alex. So I think we'll stay in touch and discuss the guidelines, and we'll continue working together. Thank you.